So this is a personal change story that is new to the series. I wasn't planning on making one about this, but I did a poll on Instagram. Great way to make decisions. But genuinely just wanted to see if people were interested to hear it, because in the first video that I started making about my career, which I never ended up publishing, I mentioned ayahuasca, and it felt like I had opened up a massive can of worms, and I ended up going on quite a trajectory. And I thought I'll remake that video and make another one about the medicine, because it's such a big topic, and I don't think I can talk about my own personal change without covering ayahuasca. And I feel like the word is so funny to say these days because it's so overused, and it's not a community that I'm particularly entrenched in or a part of anymore, but I was for a while. And I've always been that kind of person. Even at school, I meander on the outskirts of all communities. I feel like I get along with a lot of people, and I like to have a very diverse range of friendships and understandings of the world. I'm not binary in that sense, and in like these kind of extremes, which is why I have such a problem with like polarity beliefs such as veganism. Anyway, the story around it is really important to share, mainly because I think, there's a lot of misperception and there's a lot of hype, and I've seen a lot of people benefit from using this particular plant medicine and psychedelics in general, and I've also seen a lot of people are completely fucking mad. So it's definitely a personal choice, and this is not an endorsement, but it's also not it's not something I regret doing. It's not something I regret, and I had absolutely no idea how much it was going to turn my life inside out. And I think I can owe a lot of the change that happened following the ayahuasca to my experiences with the medicine and what it did to my brain. I'm still the same person. Absolutely, I'm probably more me than I ever was, and I think the primary purpose that it served was it completely unleashed fear's hold over me. I still obviously feel afraid, and but my first experience with the medicine will still be the most profound kind of mind-altering experience I've ever had in my life, and I don't think anything will ever compare to it. And it was because it was so deeply personal to me as well at that time, because I had been sober for 8 years, and I thought, when my partner at the time mentioned to me that it was something he wanted to do, it sounded like a mass orgy, and it sounded like a cult, and I was like, this is horrendous, I'm not doing this, and it's a drug, and I can't do drugs, I'm in recovery, and da-da-da. And I realized in my very strong response to him that there was something really charged in me about it, and it felt actually quite binary, and quite like it wasn't sitting well, my reaction, and something started to move in me. And it was like, they used to say this, like before going on a retreat or before going to drink the medicine, it starts working in you days before. Once you make the decision, you can already start to, and maybe that's true, maybe not, depends on what you choose to believe. I definitely think that that's true, but it's just a consciousness thing. It's like once you've made a decision to do something, you're going to start seeing the impact immediately. I watched a documentary, and I remember going for a run one day, and something just washed over me, and I just knew that this is something that I had to do. I spoke to my sponsor about it at the time, which is quite a lull, because she was like, well, I've never done it, so I can't tell you that it's a good or bad thing to do, but she said she trusted me, and she said, I trust you with your decision, and I stand by you whatever you decide. And that was really empowering for me, and I will always be grateful to her for that. Thanks, Ames. And yeah, we ended up going on that journey together, actually, and a few other friends also got involved, and it did become a little bit cultish, and it did become a little bit orgy-ish. Oh my god, I'm just realizing, not from a personal perspective, but like kind of what I was observing. Well, what I was observing, and it, not like, you know, it's not like you come home from a ceremony and then suddenly your life's been turned inside out, but pretty soon after, months follow, and things start to change without you in. It's like it basically speeds up a consciousness process that may happen in years of therapy. It speeds it up into one night, and all these things that you may or could have processed over a long period of time all get like brought to the surface in one night or one weekend, and that speeds up like the integration process. In other words, there is barely any integration unless you actually work with someone afterwards, which I never did. And I would seriously recommend, if anyone was to think of doing some kind of psychedelic medicine, that there should be some support that you make sure that you have afterwards to help integrate it. But I didn't have that. But I do think that my years of like being sober and being in yoga and everything really helped me, and I felt I'm able to navigate it within my capacity, but it was still massive, the way in which it turned my life inside out. And but I was like flying high, and but also making decisions, really not thinking about consequences or anyone else. Like, and I don't regret that. I maybe think I would have liked to have done things a little bit differently if I had another chance at it. But I don't regret it, because I don't regret anything. I just learned from it. But it's amazing what it did. It took me straight into my soul and my spirit, that part of myself I'd been neglecting for so long, and that AA and the dogmatic teachings of like the 12 steps, or the way in which I'd interpreted them, had kept me trapped in this prison of fear for so long. I was living such a controlled. Now ayahuasca just came and it just like shattered all of it. Cut all my hair off, and that's when I quit my job. I already was planning to leave Ogilvy, but it was this like it was a beautiful like push, like a final push, and I went into another job after Ogilvy that I wasn't planning on staying at for very long, but it was a great opportunity and I made good money. The whole time I was there, I did like loads of ceremonies during that time, and I was just like, woohoo, like in this total expanded world. It can also be very dangerous, for people who don't have like a grounded practice or a connection to source already. That meeting of yourself and meeting of source, or like stuff that you don't really you won't be able to make sense of in this reality. Astoundingly beautiful and epic, but can also be really frightening. But you need to make sure that you have support and that you have some kind of stable ground to work from afterwards, because there's a lot that comes up. I went through a period of a couple of years, or a few years, I think it was like 2014 to maybe 2017, where I did quite a few ceremonies, and then I took a break for a while. And that was really needed, because just really, really needed, and had a lot of time to integrate like what had come up. And for people who don't know what ayahuasca is, or who have no idea what I'm talking about, this might not actually make a lot of sense to you, but you can go and Google it. It is can be used in a really useful and educational way, especially for people with mental health issues. You know, Gabor Mate is a great thought leader in this area around like mental health and psychedelics, and I definitely think there is a space for psychedelics in the world. And it's not something that I became addicted to or wanted to do all the time, and that was just great evidence to me of, I'd been told that if I ever touched any mind-altering substance, I'd be either in the gutter or in prison or dead. That's what AA told me. And I didn't end up drinking, I didn't end up using any other drugs. It was a spiritual pursuit for me. and what I got from it was exactly what I needed. And it was also very destabilizing for a period of time, and it took a while to integrate the teachings. And I did one ceremony when I was in Mexico. Was it this year? Last year? And I went like on my own with a bunch of Spanish speaking people. It was a very last minute decision. It was so beautiful, but it was not destabilizing at all. I feel like because of all the work I'd done, I was at a place where I could really just be present with myself. And it was like a night, it was like a 10-hour meditation. You're just in meditation, and with sound and mantra, and in complete darkness. And it was very different to how I'd experienced other ceremonies, where it was very, very much about like dancing and light and some hallucinating happening in the room, and kind of being in this really like overwhelming other world, whereas this was very internal, and it was definitely what I needed, and it felt like a maturation of this journey that I had started on with the medicine. And I don't feel called to do it again. When the call comes, it's pretty clear, and then the opportunity will be presented, and it happens. That's what happened in Mexico. It was very like I hadn't done it in a while, and I thought I wouldn't want to do it again, and then it just happened. And I see it as a great tool that can be used, but only if done safely and in the right spaces. You know, it's like many other resources that are abused, like the coca leaf or marijuana or meat, agriculture, anything that's like becomes overconsumed. It can turn into quite an evil and toxic thing. So ayahuasca is no different to any other thing. Same as yoga. You know, anything that's overproduced, overconsumed, there's a dark side, and that would be my only precaution. But yeah, if there's any comments or questions, I would love to hear them, as I know this is quite a popular topic these days. Although I don't speak much about it or hang out with the community that I used to much anymore. Although we're still friends, it's just I'm not really into that. As I said, into that whole vibe. I like to be surfing on many vibes. Most importantly, just my own. So I hope that was interesting and of some use, and you learned something. See you next time.